Hello viewers, I'm your host Chandrakala Chaudhary with another episode of South Asia Focus. Let's begin the show with India, where Seychelles President Danny Faure was on a 6-day visit to New Delhi to strengthen his country's defence and trade ties with India. The visit that came on heels of a controversy over an India-Seychelles defence deal on an island not only managed to fix the issue but also turned out to be fructiferous. We have a report.
In the midst of an escalating controversy following government and opposition stalemate over Indian presence in Seychelles waters, President Danny Faure paid a 6-day maiden visit to New Delhi. The visit not only aimed at clearing the air around the controversy but also cementing the relationship between the two countries. Faure met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and reviewed the entire gamut of bilateral ties between the two nations. Both leaders asserted on strengthening defence and trade relations. Both the leaders, keeping each other's interest in mind, also reached a converging point vis-a-vis Assumption Island and agreed to work together.
Assumption द्वीप प्रोजेक्ट के संबंध में एक दूसरे के हितों के आधार पर मिलकर काम करने पर हम सहमत हैं। नेविगेशन चार्ट्स की उपलब्धता को सुधारने के लिए हाइड्रोग्राफी सर्वेस करने के लिए हम व्यापक रूप से सहयोग कर रहे हैं। इस प्रयास के हिस्से के रूप में हमने आज वाइड शिपिंग डेटा के आदान प्रदान के लिए एक MOU साइन किया है।
The two countries also signed 6 memorandums of understanding, including Indian assistance for implementation of small development projects, cooperation in cybersecurity, technical agreement on sharing white shipping information. India also offered a second line of credit of $100 million, which the Seychelles president says will be used to improve defense infrastructure of his country.
मुझे सेशल्स के डिफेंस के लिए 100 मिलियन अमेरिकी डॉलर क्रेडिट के रूप में देने की घोषणा करने में प्रसन्नता हो रही है। इस क्रेडिट से सेशल्स अपने मैरीटाइम कैपेसिटी को निर्मित करने के लिए भारत से रक्षा उपकरण खरीद सकेगा।
We will benefit from a second line of credit that will help with the infrastructure of our military defense forces in Seychelles.
Faure also met Indian Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj, who presented him a German Dornier aircraft to boost defence ties between the two nations.
It is a gift from India ahead of the celebrations to mark the National Day of Seychelles on 29th June. I am sure this aircraft will give a quantum enhancement in maritime reconnaissance and contribute towards keeping the vast EEZ of Seychelles free from maritime threats.
Seychelles is also strategic importance to India as it lies close to global lanes of shipping and commerce and is an important base in the fight against seaborne terrorism and piracy in the Indian Ocean region. According to India's Ministry of External Affairs, relations between India and Seychelles have been characterized by close friendship, understanding and cooperation, while Seychelles has described itself a rock of dependability for India in the Indian Ocean region.
Moving on, members of the Pashtun community with origins in Pakistan and Afghanistan recently held protest against the Pakistani army in front of the office of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. They were joined by Baloch and Kashmiri activists who have been facing persecution in the hands of Pakistani security forces. A report.
People who are rising against the terrorism, why Pakistan put them in the
Pashtuns from Pakistan and Afghanistan held anti-Pakistan protest in front of the United Nations during the ongoing 38th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council in Geneva. They shouted anti-Pakistan slogans and alleged Pakistan army for carrying out atrocities on Pashtun people in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, Fatah and parts of neighboring Afghanistan.
पाकिस्तान ने 40 साल से अफ़गानिस्तान और पख्तूनख्वा में अपनी दहशतगर्दी, अपनी जुल्म और अपनी दहशतगर्दी की इंतहा करके और अभी जो पश्तून कौम जो है अभी पाकिस्तान के तहत और अफ़गानिस्तान में अभी यूरोप में जितने भी ममालिक हैं इन सब में इसी तरह के जद्दोजहद करके मैनिफेस्टेशन करके प्रोटेस्टेशन करके बाहर निकले हुए अपने हुकूक मांगने के लिए, क्योंकि 40 साल से ये हम पर जुल्म कर रहे हैं, हम पर सितम कर रहे हैं, ना कि सिर्फ पाकिस्तान में बल्कि अफ़गानिस्तान में भी ये चल रही है। हमें मार रही है, हमारे हुकूक को ले रही है, हमारे बच्चियाँ बिधवा हो रही है, हमारे औलाद यतीम हो रहे हैं, हमारे स्कूल ख़राब हो रहे हैं, हमारे ज़िंदगी ख़राब हो रही है।
Today we are gathered here about the cruelty of Pakistan intelligence, ISI against them, what they did about in Afghanistan, and what are they doing in Kashmir, what are they doing in Balochistan. It's a cruelty intelligence agency in Central Asia, and it's a terrorist producer country. Their products are Lashkar-e-Taiba, Daesh, Taliban that they destroy they destroyed the neighbor countries like Afghanistan.
The Pashtuns were joined by Baloch, Sindhi and activists from Pakistan-occupied Kashmir, who are also facing persecution by the Pakistani security forces.
Not only the Baloch, the Pashtuns, the Kashmiris, the ones who were occupied over there inside Pakistan, who have been subjugated to enforced disappearances, extrajudicial killings. So we have come over here together and we have a single voice, and we are raising this voice to the United Nations that they must, take initiatives. They must intervene over there to save the lives of those people who have been subjected to extrajudicial killings, charters, and abuse over there inside Pakistan.
Today we are here to protest against the brutality of Pakistan and its institutions. Pakistan actually promoting theofascism and suppress the democratic voices of the civil society. And we are here to protect the historical nation, their culture and their identity. Actually, Pakistan try to suppress the voices of the civil society. Pakistan is a theo-fascist state, and we are here to expose its expansionist design.
Of late, a grassroots movement known as the Pashtun Tahaffuz movement has emerged to champion various human rights issues, including the alleged disappearances of over 32,000 people in Pashtun, majority areas bordering Afghanistan, where Pakistan forces and the Taliban continue to clash. Mass rallies organized by PTM have been suppressed in the media, while PTM organizers themselves have been subjected to intimidation and abductions. Enforced disappearances are also prevalent in the resource-rich province of Balochistan, where Pakistani forces resort to brutal means to suppress ethnic Baloch separatist groups.
The Voice for Baloch Missing Persons claims over 18,000 cases of enforced disappearances in this region alone. Moving on, China is spending over $60 billion to build the China-Pakistan economic corridor. The transcontinental roads, railhead and ports will link Asia with Europe. However, the way the project has been initiated, it has received massive criticism from the people of Pakistan and international think tanks. A report. The European Foundation for South Asia Studies, EFSAS, has recently warned in its report that Pakistan's growing dependence on China for development projects such as a $62 billion economic corridor under the Belt and Road Initiative could turn the illegally occupied territory Gilgit-Baltistan into a colony that would look to Beijing for its day-to-day survival. The CPAC aims to link Bazar port with Xinjiang and create a network of rail lines and highways, industrial zones and power plants.
What we have seen in our research is that the common people of Pakistan are kept very much in the dark about what this CPAC actually entails. When you look at the numbers, you can see that, for example, the trade deficit between Pakistan and China between 2012 and 2017 has more than tripled from 4 billion to almost 12.9 billion. How did that happen? When so much money is being pumped in from China's side, why is there such a big trade deficit?
Chinese funds are coming at a very high cost, which will inevitably impose long-term negative repercussions on Pakistan's ability to pay back. For instance, if looking at electric power projects, which constitute the biggest share of the CPEC portfolio because Pakistan experiences its greatest deficiencies in this sector, indeed, those electric power projects might diminish the electric power shortfall in the upcoming years. However, this will happen at the very, very high price, especially when taking into account regional competitors.
The much-touted CPEC project is witnessing an opposition by the people of Pakistan and Gilgit-Baltistan. There are accusations of acquiring private lands without paying dues to the people. China has taken advantage of Pakistan's isolation on the global stage because of allegations of sponsoring terrorism, and this patronizing attitude will only turn Pakistan into a colony which will always require China for its day-to-day survival.
We feel that all the provinces and of course the people including in these disputed territories like Gilgit-Baltistan are not happy with the CPEC because it is using their resources, but they are not getting anything back for it. A lot of land has been grabbed in order to build roads and rail networks. These people have been given rates which is far, far below the market rate. The people, their resources in Gilgit-Baltistan, for example, like glaciers, waters, everything is being used, and they are not getting appropriate rates because they have not been part of the decision-making process. So, few things: transparency, making the people part of decision-making process, letting the common people of Pakistan know what it actually means for them and at what cost is coming. And Pakistan should also be very, very wary about the fact that it does not turn into a colony of China.
The people of Pakistan are also opposing the CPEC project as they blame Islamabad and Beijing for exploiting their land and other resources without providing them basic facilities and jobs. Recently, the activists from Balochistan organized a protest outside the Chinese embassy in London demanding the project to be stopped.
Terrorist army! Pakistan army! Rapist army! Pakistan army! Baloch one!
CPEC is part of the Belt and Road Initiative being spearheaded by China to build transport infrastructure across Asia and Africa. Moving on to Bangladesh, where the Rohingya refugees have been reeling under multiple problems. On one side, an imminent monsoon season has forced them to flee the flimsy shelters, while on other, people are consuming contaminated water, owing to an acute shortage of potable water. The authorities in charge and various other organizations have also warned serious waterborne disease likely to hit the camps under extremely unsafe and unhygienic conditions. A report.
Like thousands others who were forced to flee the hostile conditions of Rakhine State in Myanmar in August last year, Noor Bahar has to make frequent trips every day to fetch water for her daily usage. Owing to an erratic water supply and an absence of adequate number of containers to store water, she fills them up 4 to 5 times a day. She also has to prioritize the use of water for drinking, cooking and other purposes.
সেটা তারা আছে দিতে রানো লইয়া পারেন না দি তারা তো দুঃখ কষ্ট করে চলে দিয়ে মানি গা দিবা বা দিন আব্বা দোয়া করে দেড় এইতে গা নদুয়ে মানি হানি ভাদিয়া দুও না ভাদিয়া নদুও 3-4 দিনও তো মানুষ গা দিয়া তা যা গই হোসরা দিয়া তা।
An acute water shortage is prevalent and the situation is almost same in all the camps. Finding safe drinking water is a huge challenge in the Rohingya refugee camps in Bangladesh. For people living here, every drop has become precious. Some of them had to survive without water for days during exodus last year. 2 types of tube wells have been installed to meet their needs, ones that are 40 feet deep and ones that are 700 feet deep. Now, with the arrival of monsoon season, rainwater has also become an important source.
যে পরিমাণ পানির দরকার সেই পরিমাণ পানি নাই, ইভেন যতটুকু টিউবওয়েল দরকার ততটুকু টিউবওয়েলও নাই, যার কারণে পানির শর্টেজের কারণে যতটুকু পানি আছে সেটাকে প্রপারলি ইউজ করার জন্য এই ওয়াটার পিউরিফায়ার ট্যাবলেট অ্যাক্টিভিটিস আমরা এখানে লিড দিচ্ছি।
Every family is given 140 chlorine tablets per month. These tablets help them to treat their water at the household level. Refugees have been trained to use these tablets to purify their water.
আরে ওষুধ জিন দের ওষুধ লইরা মানি দিয়রে যতরান ওষুধ হাইভারি বালাগুরি ফানি এতরা হাইভারি যদি ওষুধ ফাই দিতরা না ফান না ফাদি তরা হইলে বালাগুরি হাইনে পারে আইরন ওলা ফানি হাবরের।
Despite extensive efforts to contain the sufferings, the authorities have little to cheer for, as primary health centers in refugee camps are flooded with patients. Doctors have their hands full as there has been a spike in the cases of severe diarrhea. 2/3 of patients visiting the doctor are children, as they are more prone to infections. Children are the most susceptible to disease spread due to water contamination, and they rarely know that the water that they are playing with could end up being fatal.
Around 50 to 60 patients go to health centers daily. There is no drainage system in the camps, and doctors fear that the monsoon will worsen the conditions. Now moving on to Maldives, where the political crisis doesn't seem to be ending any soon. Opposition leaders who have repeatedly accused President Yameen of being an autocrat for exercising extreme high-handedness in muzzling the voices of dissent have launched a fresh attack, calling him a stooge of China, expeditiously working and assisting Beijing to achieve its business and strategic interest in the island country. A report.
While interacting with the media at an event organized by the Press Club of India and South Asian Women in Media, former Foreign Minister and a senior leader of the Maldivian Democratic Party, Ahmed Nassim, launched a fresh attack on the incumbent Maldivian President Abdullah Yameen, calling him an authoritarian who has undermined the democratic institutions of the country with the tacit support of Beijing. He says all constitutional bodies were working at the commands of the president, who himself was acting at the behest of China.
One only needs to look at the huge changes that have happened in the past 5 years. President Yameen's first term in office, to get an idea of what he plans to do next. President Yameen has used his first term in office to systematically destroy the country's democratic institutions, undermine the rule of law, and trample over the constitution. He has hounded all of his political opponents, both from the opposition and from within his own party. All opposition leaders are currently in jail or in exile. His troops are stationed inside the parliament. Today we are having a session of parliament because he wants to bring changes to the election law. I don't know what the changes are. None of the parliamentarians actually had any idea what the changes are going to be. They have just been given those papers now and they are deliberating on it.
An expansionist China, he says, has already taken control over several islands in the country and was poised to take control over the whole country if a compromise Yameen was not voted out of power.
China has lent enormous sums of money for corrupt and overpriced infrastructure projects settling the country with astronomical debt it cannot afford to repay. The Maldives is in debt up to its eyeballs to Beijing. And Beijing knows full well we cannot possibly service this debt. By 2020, some analysts estimate that 30 to 50% of the Maldives government budget will have to go on debt repayment to China.
Nassim sought an immediate intervention of the international community led by India to help restore democracy in the country and oversee elections, for he is certain that President Yameen enjoys no popularity amongst the masses and is poised to lose if fair and transparent methods are used to conduct the polls.
It is worth noting that President Yameen is not popular in the Maldives. In fact, as the result of the recent local election show, he is deeply unpopular. The reason why he is trying to steal the upcoming election is because he knows he cannot win in a fair election.
The political situation in the Maldives nosedived in February after the Supreme Court of the country ordered the release of all political prisoners, including the former president Mohammad Nasheed, stating the trial against them unconstitutional and violative of international laws. Citing security reasons, President Abdullah had imposed a 45-day emergency under which former President Mamoon Abdul Gaum and 2 top judges were arrested on charges of trying to topple the government.
The Indian Ocean archipelago will vote for a new government on 23rd September. Moving on to Ladakh region of India that recently observed a 2-day monastic festival in the famous Hemis Monastery. Colourful celebration, tasty feast and sacred mask dance mark the occasion that acts like a welcome respite just past the harsh winters of the region and lures thousands of tourists to the area. Take a look.
With a rhythmic pits of cymbals, drums and trumpets begins the celebration of Ladakh's biggest monastic festival, Hemis Festival. Thousands of locals and tourists congregate at the courtyard of the monastery to celebrate this spectacular 2-day event. Held on the 10th day of the Tibetan lunar month every year, the festival commemorates the 3rd anniversary of the Guru Padmasambhava, the founder of Tibetan Buddhism. Buddhist priests in Ladakh celebrate this festival with immense faith. The fiesta is marked by the presentation of famous mask dance, also known as charm, that brings out the true charm and history of Ladakh. The dance is particularly based on theme of victory of good over evil and is performed by wearing masks made of the clay and pepper, painted with natural colors and polished with gold and silver, and dresses usually made of silk and brocade. All this makes up for an unforgettable experience for the visitors.
I was here about 30 years ago, and all my wish was that I could come to this festival and see all these nice dances. It would be nice if I could understand everything of these dances, but still it's amazing and it's fantastic to see this really nice place here.
Situated 45 kilometers from Leh, Hemis Monastery is the largest and richest Buddhist monastery in Ladakh, constructed in the year 1630 during the reign of King Sankhe Namgyal and belongs to the Red Protpa set of Buddhist author. The monastery is mainly popular for hosting the annual 2-day event during which people from across Ladakh region as well as from across the globe gather at the monastery to witness the magical festival and its performances.
Actually, festival आज और कल है, मुझे पता नहीं था, but by luck मैं इधर पहुंच गया टाइम से. बहुत ही अच्छा फेस्टिवल है ये और मतलब अमेजिंग है. आज तक मैंने ऐसा फेस्टिवल नहीं देखा. इतने सारे लोग, इतने सारे कल्चर के लोग, इंडियंस भी हैं, लोकल्स भी हैं, फॉरेनर्स भी हैं. इट इज़ अमेजिंग, वेरी नाइस.
The festival represents the rich culture and traditional heritage of Ladakh and tends to revolve around the celebration of life and rituals to ward off evil and attract peace.
The festival is an amalgamation of sacred dance, song and colour that revitalize the spirit of the people across the Ladakh region. With that, we come to the end of this week's episode. See you next week. Goodbye and take care.